I once applied to do a PhD maybe 12, 13 years before I actually ended up coming to Ulster and doing my PhD. That didn't work out and I went into the world of work, and what happened was I was working with young people who cared for someone, and one of the big problems that we had was that when we were trying to get funding for them, we couldn't get Northern Ireland based evidence. And another aspect of my job was doing policy and research. So it all kind of went together, and I thought, look, I would like to do something research-wise outside of work. I'd like to do something that could maybe help the cause. And that was the reason why I applied to do a PhD. I thought I can do this research, it might help them out, and it'll help me feel a wee bit more fulfilled personally. And then I came to Ulster because I went along to something in relation to my job, and they'd looked at the impact of maternal mental health on young people, and that was from the UNESCO Centre up in Coleraine in the School of Education. And I was really impressed with that bit of research, and it really helped, with what I was doing with the young people. So that's what really attracted me to Ulster, and the person who was then to come on and be my supervisor, Dr. O'Connor Bones, was one of the people who worked on that paper. So that was really the motivation for coming to Ulster. When I did get the letter through saying that I got funded for it, I wasn't quite sure what that would mean for me initially. I was married at the time, so my husband was working. It was that big decision of the difference between living on a scholarship and living on a wage, and there was a good difference between the two things. But it all came together, so it meant that I had my fees paid for. I had a monthly stipend throughout it. I had a budget for going to conferences and things like that. And basically, it was. I never went without. It just enabled me to put my full-time attention into doing the PhD at the time. So a PhD it's an individual research project that comes from you. It's you write up your research proposal, you implement the research, you do all the background reading, you carry out the research, you write it up, you present your findings. It's very much you lead it, you drive it, and your supervisors are there if when you need help and guidance on your way through it. But very much it's entirely up to you. It's your individual research project for you to look at whatever really interests you. Well, during my time at Ulster, I had a fabulous supervisory team. I had Dr. O'Connor Bones and Dr. Jessica Bates, and honestly, I truly believe, and anyone that I talk to, I tell them that I did win the lottery when it came to them. I had a bit of a strange PhD journey in that it coincided with us starting our family. So they were an absolutely fabulous support. I had miscarriages before we actually had our first son, and honestly, I couldn't have asked for any more in terms of personal support and in terms of just putting things into perspective for me and helping me break things down so that I would still meet my targets and not be under too much pressure. So I had a year out after year 2 of my PhD. I had Henry, my little boy, and I had a year's maternity leave. And even during the maternity leave, I would have been in contact with my supervisors just to keep in touch and things like that. So they were my major source of support. They were brilliant. They were kind when they needed to be kind. They could give me a kick at the backside when I needed it. It was just a fabulous working relationship. I went to a good few things with the Research Developers Programme. One of the first things I went to was something on literature review, and it proved really, really helpful on systematic literature reviews. And what actually ended up happening was that I ended up doing a paper with the person who took it, because at that time education didn't really do systematic literature reviews, so that was a new thing. And I went to the writing workshops as well with Daniel. He was fabulous, really encouraging, and even just to get, there was one in particular I went to, I think it was a 2-day intensive workshop, and it was brilliant because it was just time out just to totally focus on your writing, because I think sometimes you get so wrapped up in the research and going through and looking for themes and all the rest of it that the writing's the last thing that you tend to do. So my supervisors would have had their own individual projects, and they would have asked for help on those. So you could have been doing telephone interviews some days, and that was really interesting, and things like that. I really enjoyed it when they came to me and said, look, we can do this. Obviously you can only work so many hours a week with the funding, but I always loved that. That was always very helpful, and it was good just to get that bit of experience and build my confidence up. I absolutely loved my time at Ulster doing my PhD. It was such a funny time. It was such a time of personal development, and it was really brilliant being able to sort of. I loved going out and actually doing the research. I loved all of that. It's hard sometimes too when you're sitting and you're having to write, but what I found was you always find somebody else to have a chat with. Everyone was very friendly. In terms of the skills that I've learnt, I have a young family, so what I find is that the skills come in so useful. I can work flexibly using the skills that I've gained throughout my PhD, and I've picked up different research projects that I would work part-time on around my little ones. So that's been fantastic coming out of the PhD. And I think too as well, I would be on the boards for 2 different charities, and I've been able to use my skills from the PhD in terms of planning and like project management and things like that to, you know, help them out with the different things that they're doing as well. So that's been really good. And the other thing is as well, I honestly think I made friends for life during my PhD, and that was a huge part of it as well for me, was just that side of it, the social support as well.